This is my journey. Inspired one story at a time, a library of leaders was created. It began as a journey to learn. As time went on, it began to grow. All it needed was a platform, and this podcast was created to listen, to inspire, to share. I am a storyteller, and this is my journey. Welcome to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. I'm your host, Steve Anderson, and today our guest is Tamara Laine, who is an Emmy Award-winning journalist, fintech founder, and business growth strategist. As the founder and CEO of Empower and co-founder of Built, that's BYLT, she is transforming how credit and capital are assessed by gig workers, women, and underserved communities through AI and alternative data. A former gig worker herself, Tamara brings lived experience to her mission of building a more inclusive financial system. She has launched and scaled eight-figure tech ventures and is a recognized expert in financial inclusion, ethical tech, and economic innovation. Tamara also co-hosts What the Frac, which is a podcast on startup growth. So, Tamara, welcome to the program. It's great to have you on today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's just give a little context. We heard a little bit in the bio, but just tell us a little bit about where you grew up and where you're from, and a little bit about your gig work experience and why you're doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, well, I grew up just outside of Seattle, Washington, in a very small farm town, which was really fun to grow up in. A lot of outside time, a lot of running around.
So,
But
what town is that? I'm in Seattle as well. I'm just a little west of Seattle. So, what
that's
town?
Snohomish. I grew up in Snohomish.
Okay, wow, it's pretty close. Okay, great.
Yeah. But I was a ballerina, and so that took me traveling all over Europe and then to New York. And so I settled in New York City with big dreams of being on Broadway.
Okay.
And I quickly discovered that I hated singing in front of people. Just, just
Okay.
did not like it. And so it was never going to work out for being on Broadway. So I had to switch course and I found myself in documentary films, and absolutely loved it, fell in love with it. And so that took me on my course of, um, building into investigative journalism and working in news agencies. And so, that whole time in my early 20s, I was freelancing, doing, basically what you'd consider gig work, right? Going from gig to gig, until I landed my job as a journalist, in New York City and did that, helped launch three different media outlets, had a great time. And then I left to start working with startup founders and fell in love again, right? Like two loves in my life. First, it was the news, then it was startups. And that was the second part of my career where I actually was doing fractional CMO work, fractional executive work. And so I was helping other founders launch and build companies and joined a team where we built a technology, a live selling shopping platform, and launched and scaled that myself. And so after I left that, I thought, well, what do I want to do? And I'd been working in financial inclusion and financial fluency for a while, and I'd seen just the disparity in access for people who had non-traditional income streams. And particularly, female founders, gig workers, newly arrived, everyone who doesn't have a kind of a traditional W-2 house and mortgage, just access to getting credit, access to loans. So my investigative journalism sense kicked in and I started really digging into it and talking with people and reading up on everything that I could and seeing what a large challenge this is. And so with AI coming out, I've thought this is something that we can solve and we can make so much better and make a better experience. So I found my co-founder and we launched Empower, which is creating the agentic ecosystem for banks to create products to serve this new economy.
Oh, that's amazing. So, tell us a little bit about your Emmy Award. What uh, that's a big deal.
Yes, and so my Emmy Award was for a story on ethical technology. And actually, that's why it kind of brings me full circle as to this, what started piquing my interest on creating ethical AI. And so the story that I did was on a group of people who were fighting for a code of ethics in the AI technology at Amazon and Northrop Grumman. And the group of activist investors were the nuns. And the nuns were using their pensions to really force, two huge companies to really look at this problem. And it was phenomenal, kind of talking with the women who were the activist investors working on this, and how they were able to leverage their pensions, leverage their values in order to help others.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Wow. What a great story. So, isn't it true though? We live in a weird world with the loan community or the banking community. It's like the people who don't need money can get money anytime they need it, but the people who really need money can't get money because they don't have the money to get the money. It like makes no sense, but that's kind of the way it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say most of the time. I've even talked to founders who have exited their companies who had, tens of millions of dollars, and can't get a home loan
Yeah.
because they
They don't
don't.
have the income. They don't have the regular monthly income, and the bank looks at that as being the only holy grail, right?
Yeah. So there's a lot of little gaps right now that aren't, it's because the world has changed that now we've got this fantastic opportunity to innovate in this area. And it's a hard area to innovate in because it's so regulated, which is good. But it's ripe for it. This is the moment.
Well, I can certainly understand that, but my next question would be, okay, you identified a problem. You're going up against a huge traditional system that doesn't like change at all. So how do you convince them that they need to loan money to gig workers?
Well, that's not my job. My job
Okay.
is to create a really good technology that helps them do it. They want, right now, everyone who I'm talking to, they want to loan to as many people as possible, right? Like, it's not that these systems don't want to give more loans, right? They're constantly looking for new clients, new customers. It's how do we get them to understand people in a more holistic way? That's my job. My job is to create better ways of measuring someone's ability to pay back, someone's, I say holistic profile, who they really are. And so when we can do that, we create the opportunity for more loans.
So give us a real life example, obviously without names, but give us a real life example of someone who used that product you're talking about that you've created and how it got them in front of a loan person who then they got the loan. So tell us how what you did and how that worked.
Well, we're still pre-launch. So
Okay.
we're about to launch in Q1 of next year.
Okay. Okay.
So
So,
we're in the exciting, innovative time.
okay. Then give us a hypothetical then. So a little bit about how that would work if I'm a gig worker and I've had trouble getting money or I don't know how to get money, then tell us how this product is going to help me.
Yeah, so with this product, what you would do is our AI loan agent would help walk you through what you need. So a lot of times when you fill out a form, right? You fill out a form, you say how much you need, and you get a yes or no back. And that's not necessarily helpful. What you really need is to understand how much you should be borrowing, and how to pay it back, right? Not just going through a whole bunch of forms and getting rejected because you're either asking for more than they will give out, or you're not filling it out right, and the bank doesn't necessarily understand what you need. So our AI agents now are able to give a better walkthrough of what can you afford, and what do you need it for, and how do us help you come to the middle of that, right? And then you would be walked through the process of setting up kind of your credit profile so that it's transparent and so that you understand what information is being pulled. And then you find out after, the loan officer comes in and reviews this, you find out if you get the loan or not, or get the credit or not. So it's a much more human-centered process.
Okay, so I'm looking at this and I see that you've identified an issue and a problem and you've come up with a potential solution. I would also assume that you're probably not a computer programmer or an AI expert. So, how do you create a company that deals with those issues if you're not that technical person?
Well, that's where good teams come in, right? I have a phenomenal co-founder who I say is an AI savant.
Okay.
So that's, what good founders do is they surround themselves with expert team members.
Okay, which makes total sense. So just tell us, was it your idea to come up with this, or was it this other co-founder's idea? How do you two come together, and how do you work together going forward?
Yeah, so I had been digging into this idea for a long time. And so then I knew I needed to find a technical co-founder who would help me build this. And so someone recommended I go on to Y Combinator's co-founder matching program because I needed to find a technical co-founder who would be on this journey with me. And I talked to probably 30 or 40 different co-founders, and each one was like, great, let's build it. We'll build it, in 2 weeks, and we'll get some customers on and we'll prove our idea. And I was like, I know that it's more complicated than that, what we're building out. And so I started chatting with my current co-founder, Melanie, and the first thing she said was, nope, this is too complicated. I don't want to do it. And I said, you're the person for me because you understand the complexity that this holds and how to build a really great product that's gonna we say it has a moat, that has a specialty, a unique aspect to it that can't be replicated.
So how do you come to that decision that she's the one? Intuition, what was it about her that you said, okay, I know this person's going to help me get to where I want to go?
I would say probably with things like that, it's right. It's just like dating. Um, because you have to have a very special relationship with your co-founder. You go through the fire, you go through the trenches with your co-founders when you're building a company. So part of it is intuition, and the other part of it is just like, interviewing for a job. I had her talk with a few of my um, former colleagues and friends and mentors to see, like, okay, let's see technically if what I'm talking about and what she's talking about, can they come together and can we, build this and does it make sense? So there was a process to it.
So when you look back on yourself being a young ballerina and traveling the world or the nation and doing all these amazing things, what did you learn from that experience that put you in a position to be a co-founder of a startup company?
Grit.
Yeah.
Grit is, I think, one of the best gifts that you can be given in life. So from an early age, right, doing ballet, auditioning for Broadway, you hear no more often than you hear yes, and you keep going. Um, and you learn to trust yourself and you learn to know when, you've got something good and to stick it out and when you need to pivot. And you learn those feedback loops that you need for yourself. So from ballet, starting with that, it was a tough, very crowded field that you're kind of fighting through to being an investigative news journalist, right? That is the school of hard knocks. You're out there, you're literally knocking on doors, um, and and you have to persevere and you have to be very tough and you have to face criticism and you have to build your thick skin. And that's what good founders, are made of.
Mm.
I Startup founders are a particular breed of people because we have to fight, and say, I believe in this before it's actually real. It's like an artist, right? Before they have a masterpiece.
So I may have a little bit of a Hollywood idea of what an investigative journalist is like, but that sounds like a really exciting, very passionate type of job. So why leave it? Is it becoming harder and harder to do these days, or you just have want to go in a different direction? Why change?
I did it for a little over 15 years, and after my daughter was born, I thought, oh, I want to have a better work-life balance. So let me go work with startups, and the joke was on me.
Yeah.
Because the hours didn't get better, but I am at home way more. And honestly, I love it. It's creating in a whole new way, right? I consider myself a storyteller. And so my whole life, I've been telling great stories and creating stories. And a product is just a different type of story with a different outcome.
So, in the intro into this podcast, I say that I'm a storyteller as well. I identify with that. So, tell me, how does a storyteller, how do you use that gift, let's say, in taking this company forward and hopefully making it fly? So, how does storytelling come into that?
Well, storytelling is just the basis of your emotional attachment to something, right? And how you relate with it. Um, you relate with a story, you don't necessarily relate with a product. And so as we're building Empower, we are looking at what is it that makes this human? What is it that is the why that pulls people to it? And that's, it's a little different with B2Bs. I've worked with, B2C brands, and that's much easier on the storytelling side, right? And B2Bs are a little bit different. But the foundation of any product should be the story of why and what problem it's solving.
Hmm. For sure. So tell us a little bit about Built. So what is Built, and what constitutes your time working in that area as well?
Yeah, so Built is a phenomenal new construction tech, prop tech company that's leveraging AI to help asset managers and builders do their products better, do their homes and their construction projects better. It's really exciting because I think I like coming into industries that are um, haven't innovated in a long time, right? So there's a lot of room for innovation in construction tech and prop tech. And I'm helping the founder of Built because he's got such a great idea. I'm leveraging my background in marketing and launching companies to help him.
So construction, you mean building construction. So you're talking
Yeah.
about like big, huge office skyscrapers or apartment complexes, or what kind, or all?
Anything. This is more so what Built does is more of the communication between stakeholders in one technology platform.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. So now, and then you also have a podcast. So tell us about the podcast and why you're doing that.
Yeah, What the Frac is a phenomenal podcast that I have with, or at least I'm biased, that I have with my co-host Nicole. And what we do there is we talk about how to scale a business and a startup. And it comes from a fractional perspective. So I talk about, being a gig worker. This is it. Now, fractional C-suite executives are kind of the new gig worker, right? Um, and so both of us have been fractional executives, and we came together and we said, we get asked questions all the time. So why don't we come together and kind of answer some of those questions in our podcast and talk with other industry leaders to answer these questions that her and I kept getting asked over and over again. And so it started as kind of just fun, let's get together and chat, and now it's really grown into something. We've got almost 8,000 subscribers. We're asked to talk at different events, and it's a lot of fun.
So in the fractional world of an executive like that, maybe this is an assumption of mine, so tell me if this is right. I would think if I'm going to hire you to be a fractional, whatever the executive level position is, that I'm going to think you're great and I'm going to love working with you, and then I'm going to want to hire you. So how do you just stay a fractional? I would think that a lot of companies probably like what you do and then want to hire you full time.
Yeah, well, I think right now we're in a very unique time where you don't need a full-time C-suite for many stages of a company's life, right? From startup to about Series A, you should probably have fractional leadership where you've got that strategy level um, mindset in your company, but they don't need to do the day-to-day to execute on tasks, right? They come in, they do the strategy, they lead their team, and then they can go do that for several other companies, and it saves the startup money. And really, it creates a kind of a more fun environment for the fractional leadership. Um, and so you're seeing that more and more and more. But what happens, to your point, is, um, of course, if someone's doing a good job, you want them to come into their company, but the cost is very prohibitive at some levels. So this allows for, all stakeholders, the board, your company growth to engage with that sort of level of leadership without having to have the costs.
Is the most common financial arrangement in that situation? Is it cash or compensation, or is it equity?
It's usually both.
Okay. Okay.
But I mean, every company is different.
So going back to M Motion, then your company, are you doing pre-seed or seed money, Series A? What are you doing to raise money to get this thing going, or are you funding it all on your own?
So I bootstrapped. We are going to raise money. One of my mentors said, bootstrap as long as you can,
Mhm.
and start getting early validation. And so that's what we wanted to do. But as we start to scale, we are going to raise funds.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it definitely takes money to do that, and I know what you mean. You don't want to go in too early because then people that invest money want to control you and want to push the strategy, and if you want to stick with your own ideas as well.
Yeah, that was important to me. And also now with all the advances in AI and the ability, you actually can get very close to to product market fit, to having customers on board. It depends on the area that you are. So for some tools that I've seen, you could spin those up in a few weeks or a month with a small team, and very low cost. Our tool, we're creating our own LLM. We've got a whole bunch of things that we're doing that are unique. So it's a longer path. And we to start using it, we are going to need to raise funds. But I think what's exciting is some tools now you can create super fast, have customers on. So you're going to get investors later, after you've seen that there's validation for the product.
Where are you based now?
Now I'm outside of Boston.
Okay. And so do you see this company becoming brick and mortar, where you're going to have an office and you're going to have people working in the office and whatever? Is it all from a hybrid situation, or is it all remote?
So I've been leading remote teams now for it feels like a decade.
Mhm.
Um, I would say we would keep a very small footprint,
Mhm.
and allow for remote to like limited hybrid, because it's just what I believe in. I think it allows for, personally, like I like hiring moms. It allows for better situations for being with your family, for work-life balance, while finding the times to get together. And you can also have better global teams, right? Like my co-founder right now is in the UK. Um, and so it's great to be able to say, I've got, leading minds all over the world working on this product.
If I were to ask someone that's worked with you in the past and seen your leadership style, what would they say? What is your leadership style?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. Um, so I worked with a leadership coach earlier this year, and what we came to after taking, like several different tests was that my leadership style is very like inspirational, motivational, big picture.
Mhm.
And what I'm working on is being a more empathetic leader.
Okay.
I like to get up and say, everybody come, we can do this together, we can solve the problem.
More of a inspirational, charismatic, cheerleader in a way to bring everyone on board and whatever. So, in your opinion, what does being a more empathetic leader mean?
It means helping others to have that same excitement that I do without having to be the one that champions it.
Mhm.
So, kind of meeting them where they are, helping them create ideas to join in on the growth, on the company, strategy, tasks, all of that. Um, so a different way of engaging their participation.
Yeah, interesting. So when you look at putting this together and you have to be a risk taker, you're obviously the money's at risk, your time's at risk, it's not easy to do this. What's your comfort level with this? Is this your jam where you're just in here and you thrive off this, or is this a time in your life when it's a little nerve-wracking?
Um, I probably thrive more than am nerve-wracked. I really love solving a hard problem. And I know that with that comes a lot of risk, but the reward on the other side could be just exponential, right? And so it's kind of like training. I also am, I've trained for half marathons, I'm training for a marathon. It's you have to be able to embrace the pain to have the reward. And so I look at that the same way as I'm building a company. I know what the reward is on the other side. So you just have to embrace, the journey and find the way to enjoy it, which I do enjoy it.
So I'm a physical therapist, and I know as a ballerina with that much time and effort, your body probably took a toll on that. So, are you able to run and do those kind of active things that you want to do with that history of pushing it in a pretty specific way?
Yeah, I even broke my hip when I was a ballerina. That was a painful uh long recovery. But yeah, I mean definitely. And I think as a ballerina, you're very in tune with how to keep your muscles, your joints well taken care of. So I definitely I take a lot more care with running. I make sure I'm wearing the right shoes. I've got my CBD lotion that I put on after runs to keep, inflammation down. I try and do all the things, but the way it helps me mentally, it just can't be done any other way.
Meaning that by doing the physical activity and setting a goal and doing all that, that helps you become a better leader and a better CEO.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, there's something about knowing that you did something very hard first thing in the morning that makes the rest of the day a little bit easier.
hmm Interesting. So do you think that, gig workers are, we're going to see more and more of that as we go into the future? It's very traditional to, have a job and have a place to go to work and maybe work for a company. Changes recently have been that, people jump around a lot more and aren't as loyal to companies they used to be. But then I think the other extension of that would be the gig worker, where you're basically working for yourself, but helping people here and there. You see more and more of that?
Absolutely. I think the gig work is the new economy. I think that that's what we're going to see. It's, half of the US workforce now, it's only growing. Younger generations are choosing a new lifestyle where they work the jobs that they want to work so that they can travel and they can have different experiences. Um, I think we are only going to see more of it, not less. It's, like I said, the new economy.
So what's the challenges of a leader, a CEO, or some leadership team that manages people that are in that realm? I would assume there's a whole different level of things to consider and things to make sure your people have and get and want. So, how do you look at that differently than maybe a traditional CEO would?
Well, so I think when I'm going to talk in broad and a broad brush here. there's many different things now that we have to think about with this new economy coming up, right? The new workforce, which is it's going to be different how they get health care, how they get their 401k, how they interact with the financial system. Um, there's the whole suite of products that you normally got through work, right? That now have to be done differently. And so we're seeing products pop up that are addressing that to help them. And so if you are hiring, remote, if you're hiring freelancers, those are the types of things that you're going to be thinking about because you don't have to provide them, but how do we as a society, as founders, as leaders, look at that because those are critical things to being a flourishing person.
It's often you think of like if you're going to be a gig worker or do something on your own, that's one of the things you give up, is like 401ks and company provided health benefits and things like that. So I think it's going to take a whole new mindset for people to consider those things and just not have them or ignore them because they are valuable to living a healthy life and living a life after you're done working. So I would assume that that's going to take a mindset of your basic person to think, okay, I've got to do that on my own. And when you bring money in and to take some of that money to put it towards those is going to be harder to do than if your company's doing it for you, I would suspect.
Yeah, and so that's why this is an opportunity to start thinking about that, to have companies pop up to solve this problem.
Yeah. So we've kind of touched a lot on your new company and a couple things you're working on and your history. What haven't we touched on that you want to be sure and get into the program today that we can discuss?
Oh man, I mean, I I'm really excited about kind of the opportunity that AI has to solve a lot of these problems if done right and ethically. And so I think that's one of the main things that I'm pondering these days, talking about is just how do we continue to strive for building the best AI products that help, society, communities, people thrive, don't monopolize their time and are done without bias. So I don't necessarily need to talk about it, but those are the things that are on my mind these days.
Yeah, and I think that not everyone, I think most people would think that AI has huge potential. It's bringing this whole new world that we couldn't even imagine, a few years ago. There is the ethical, moral part of it. There's the kind of dark, deep, ugly part that could happen, and there's just so much unknown. So it feels a little bit about the Wild West, like what's going to happen and how's it going to happen. But yet everyone talks about it, but I'm not sure any of us really know how to deal with it other than just learn as we go.
Yeah, well, and it's happening really fast.
Yeah.
So, it is something I hope everybody is trying to learn because it's here to stay. But as people who are creating it, how do we do it in the best way? So that's exciting.
I think when you talk to people that are doing startups and starting new companies and coming up with new ideas, I don't think I've heard of one in the last couple of years that didn't have some AI component to it. So again, you just go back 5 or 7 years ago and we hardly knew about AI. So it's definitely you've got to consider it, you've got to bring it in, and then how do you leverage it without it getting out of control? It's a really interesting world. I think we're like I said, I think we're in the infancy of it, and not everyone knows exactly how to harness it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, yeah. So looking forward. So what excites you? You're starting this company. What's the next 3 years look like for you, and what do you envision?
Yeah, well, so we're launching in 2026. So, I mean, 3 years, I'm guessing, are going to go so fast because we've got our roadmap to scale. We definitely want to move into new markets. So, looking at Europe, and all the different countries there, the UK. I mean, there's a bunch of different opportunities that we can take. And I know we've got to go one step at a time. So starting in the US. And just also, making sure that we're spreading the word for ethical technology. And so that's, I think, my 3 years are going to be monopolized by that, and also watching my kids grow because I've got two young little tots.
Yeah. So when you look at, I'm always interested in entrepreneur startup people, and do you see this as, like a legacy company that you're going to do and grow and just keep it going and throughout your career, or do you see it as a great idea, put tons of energy and effort into it, raise the money, get it going, and then maybe you sell to a bigger fish down the road?
I'm not how do I put this? I'm not trying to launch and then run. I really want to see this company flourish and grow to its full potential. So that's where my mindset is right now, is definitely growing this to be as big as possible.
So at this point in the interview, I always ask my guests the same common question, and that question is, in relation to leadership, what is a pearl of wisdom that you could leave us with today?
Harness the creativity of your team. And do that by allowing failure. Create safe space for failure so that creativity can flourish. If you don't allow for mistakes, for missteps, or for ideas to flop, then you also are not allowing for great ideas to be proposed.
As this company grows and you get more people involved, do you see in some type of leadership development or whatever mentoring or coaching you provide, do you see storytelling as a part of that with your history and journalism and so on? Do you think that's important? And do you think that you can teach that to people that they can use in their leadership journey?
Yeah, I don't think I can ever get away from storytelling, and I would love to teach that to other people in their journey.
And what makes a good story? Without getting too technical here, what is it about a story that compels others? So when you're writing a investigative journalist report or investigation, what is it that you're looking for and what's the hook?
Oof. I mean, there's so many different things that make a good story, but I would always say it's the human element of you know, the problem, the problem and how it affects people.
Yeah,
It that's it. It's, and how you can relate to it, right? You have to understand what the problem is in order to relate to it. And so the job of a storyteller is to get people to understand what the problem is and how it relates to them.
yeah, for sure. Well, Tamara, this has been a real pleasure. It's been exciting talking to you. I think you've got an interesting niche here that makes a lot of sense, and especially if our economy and our future is headed towards more gig workers and more people doing that, certainly a service that's needed. So it's exciting to talk to you about it and learn about it, and wish you the best of luck going forward with the plan.
Thank you. I love this conversation. Thank you for having me on.
Okay, well, take care, and maybe we'll see each other down the road one of these days. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. To listen to all my interviews, subscribe to Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, and many other popular podcast platforms. Some of these interviews are on video, and you can search YouTube for Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson. You can also access the entire library of interviews on my website, orange.coaching.com, and that is orangetheword.coaching.com, and go to the Media Center and click on Podcasts or Video Gallery. You can also enter the website from pilpodcast.com.